Who is to be blamed when a child is born destined to kill his own father and marry his own mother? Is it just destiny and the gods should be blamed for it, or could it have been stopped, but due to the negligence of certain people, including himself, it happened? Well, these are questions we will be answering at the end of this video, and you might want to stick around for it. Hello everyone, welcome back to Influencing Writer Tracy. This is episode 1, part 1 of Storytime. For this video, our story is the play The Gods Are Not to Blame, written by the late Nigerian author Ola Rotimi in the year 1971. It is quite a popular story, especially in West Africa, and it is known to be an adaptation of the classic Oedipus Rex. But before we get into today's video, you might want to move on to Facebook as usual, and please follow our school's Facebook page, Therese Bretta Future Education Center. I'm going to leave the link below. Kindly follow the school's page, like the page for support. And if you are in Painesville area, you might want to consider sending your child or ward to our institution. We have 2 branches, one in Nasal Community and one in Soul Clinic Community, both in Painesville, Monroeville. We provide nothing but the best, so you might want to consider it. Let's get into today's video. The struggles of a man begins at birth. So it is that our story begins with the birth of a child. In a town called Kutuje, Queen Ojuola and King Adetuza had just given birth to their very first child. And since it was their very first child, a male child too, he had to be taken to the shrine of Ogun to be blessed, and as custom demanded for the priest of Ife to tell his future. I believe Ife is where the town of Kutuje was located, just for reference. Well, I can already hear you asking, who is Ogun? Don't worry, I've got you. Ogun, according to Ola Rotimi in this very book, is the god of war, iron, and the doctor of all male children. But for someone who is not a Nigerian, and knowing that I have viewers who aren't Nigerians either, I had to dig deeper. Ogun is not just one of the many gods of the Yoruba tribe of Nigeria. He is one of the most worshipped gods of the Yoruba belief. He is said to be often misunderstood as evil due to his temper, but he actually helps those who praise to him. There are many stories about Ogun, but interestingly, in terms of the word creation stories, compared to the Christian Bible story, Ogun might be considered Lucifer. According to the Yoruba belief, in terms of creation story, Obatala is the god that creates the human body. And then the body is brought to life by the smooth breath of Oludumare. Oludumare is also known as the Almighty, the divine entity, the supreme being. So he's like a spirit. And Ogun is one of the gods, but he tried to take over the throne of Obatala after his death. And because of this, he was sent to exile. Oludumare is not worshipped to directly. He is worshipped to through other gods like Obatala. So comparing this to the Christian Bible story, we might want to say Obatala is God the Father, and Oludumare is God the Spirit, and Ogun is Lucifer. There are, however, many other stories in the Yoruba belief that might contradict this, so please note that I'm not saying that the beliefs are the same or the stories are the same. I'm just noting the similarities. Let me quickly apologize in advance for any name or word that I might mispronounce, as I'm not a native of Nigeria or Yoruba, and most of these names are Yoruba names, so I might mispronounce some of them, or maybe all of them. Let me just apologize for that in advance. Now let's get back to our story. The priest of Ife, who is called Baba Fakule, arrives led by a little boy because he's blind. So he is blind physically, but he is a seer. I guess you don't need your physical eyes to see spiritual things. Anyways, he sat down and began to consult the gods about the future of the child, and everyone stood around or sat around waiting to hear from him. And when they finally asked him what future the gods had sent with this child, he said, "This boy, he will kill his father and marry his mother." This wasn't just a sad news. It was completely shocking. The mother and the father began to cry, and whilst they are trying to digest the information, they had to accept that they can't just let it happen. They had to do something about it, and do it immediately. The only solution was to kill the child. Once the child dies, his fate dies. Let me just say, I can't begin to imagine how the queen felt as a mother, bearing a child for 9 months, going through labor and all that, only to be told that he has a bad destiny and needed to be killed before you even get to experience motherhood. I can't imagine. The priest of Ogun takes the child, ties his both feet with strings of cowries, symbolizing a sacrifice to the gods, and gave him to the chief special messenger, who is the chief executor, called Bonka, to be taken to the forest to do what had to be done, if you know what I mean. But Obatala, remember Obatala? Yes, Obatala, the god of creation, has a way of consoling the distress. 2 years later, Queen Ojuola and King Adetuza were blessed with another child, a male child, and they named him Aderepo. Another 30 years later, after the birth of this second child, Aderepo, King Adetuza met with an unfortunate death. And Kotuje was only peaceful for a short while after this, because another town called Ikolu took advantage of the death of their king and attacked their land. They seized hundreds, killed hundreds, enslaved hundreds more, and left the town of Kotuje in hunger, thirst, and fear. And then came Odiwale, the only son of his father Ogondili, and a man of the tribe of Ajikun, another town quite far away from Kutije. He had heard of the sufferings and the struggles of Kutije, and he came to see for himself. Upon seeing the struggles and suffering of the people and how they had just given up and buried themselves in their sorrows, he began to encourage them. Under his power, he took the people of Kutije and they attacked Ikolu. They freed their people who were taken as slaves and took the land and all of the wealth of Ikolu. For as Odiwale says, he that pelts one with pebbles asks for rocks in return. Simply saying, if you do something bad to someone, you should expect only worse from them. Kotije didn't only get all of their wealth back, they also had that of Ikolu, and that made them even wealthier. Out of joy, they made Odiwale king. They made a man who was not of the descent of Kotije king, and that was against traditions. But I mean, it was only fair after what he did for them, right? Odiwale had been ruling the kingdom of Kotije for 11 years, and he had taken Queen Ojuola as his wife as custom demanded. They had 4 children, 2 girls and 2 boys. But as Odiwale says again, joy has a slender body that breaks too soon, because Kotije was back to suffering. And this time, it had nothing to do with an attack from another kingdom. The scene opens with the town people gathered in front of the palace, and the noise was so much as more and more people cried in agony and grew impatient as they waited for their king. The noise was so much that they did not even realize when the king came out and stood before them greeting. And when their attention was drawn to that by one of the chiefs, the first response one of the citizens gave was, "What good is greetings to a dying body?" I must admit, I like that line more than I should. Anyways, The town people went ahead to complain about how much an unknown sickness had been killing them, and they felt as if the king did not care because he was doing nothing. The chiefs tried to come to the defense of the king, but the town people just wouldn't hear anything of it. Someone even mentioned how he had conquered the people of Ikolu, but couldn't do anything about the pandemic, if I may call it. Seriously, Kotije? Seriously? It reminds me of Moses and the people of Israel in the Christian Bible story. Please tell me you get the reference. When Oduale had heard enough, he finally spoke. He said, when the rain falls, it doesn't choose who to fall on. It falls on everything and everyone that it sees. And the sickness is like rain. So the people of Kotije were doing him great wrong by accusing him of not caring. And they immediately tried to apologize, but he stopped them. He said, I have done nothing, or I have said nothing to prove that I deserve apologies yet. I just love Oduale. He asked his wife to bring out all their children, including their sick daughter who was finally sleeping after not being able to sleep. When she brought them out, he showed them to the people and asked them to even feel the children to see how sick even his kids were. When they saw the children, they felt sorry for him and quickly began to suggest solutions to their problem. They started making suggestions like they should sacrifice to the gods, they should make sacrifices to the gods so that they can heal their land. And Oduale let them know that he had done all of that. He had made sacrifices to so many gods, and still he was seeing no change. The Ogun priest, who was also present, drew their attention to the fact that Aderepo was not around. Remember Aderepo? Yes. And they immediately started thinking the worst. Like, where is he? Is he dead? Oh no, did the sickness kill him? And Oduale was like, no, please don't wish death on the poor man. He's not dead. We sent him to Orunmila, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, another village, so that he can go and consult the all-seeing God about what was wrong with us, like what is going on and what can we do to stop it. Now the people realized all that Oduale had been doing, and they began to thank him. But Oduale, being the man that he is, he stopped them. He told them they shouldn't thank him and he was only performing his duties as a king. But now he had to ask them. He said, now that you've all come sprawling, vomiting, crying and rubbing tears on one another, asking me to perform my duties, what about you? What have you done to help yourselves? If you haven't realized, Oduale is my favorite character. Anyways, he goes on to scold them about them doing nothing but coming to his palace and accusing him of doing nothing. And some of them said they have been trying to do something. They went into the bushes, they tried to get herbs and they tried to boil them to drink. Another lady said she went and got some herbs from the bush and then she boiled it, and that's what she and her family drinks. And then he asked her, how long do you boil it? And she said, oh, I boil it, and as soon as it boils, I take it off and then we drink. And he said, no, go on, boil it even more. And as the people were bringing in like things that they've been trying, Oduale always had something else to say about it. He even asked his wife to bring out some herbs that he himself had gone to the bush to get, and he showed it to them and asked them that they could also get some of those herbs so that they can drink it too. And the people were all excited, they were motivated again. And whilst the meeting was going on, Aderepo arrived. And they were excited to know what news Aderepo had brought. But then Oduale told them that they should all go home, and he told them to go in groups, mostly neighbors. They should gather themselves and go into the bushes and gather more herbs to boil and drink. They should help themselves. So they were motivated once again after he had told them everything, and they all left in groups to go and do what their king had told them. Now, whilst they were leaving, there was a lady who left behind, and then she was saying stuff that didn't make sense. And when Odiwale asked who she was, the chief told him that her husband had died few days ago from the sickness, and she also had a baby with her. So Odiwale asked that the baby be taken away from her and given to his wife to take care of, and the lady should be taken to the herbalist, the traditional doctor, so that she can be treated. After the people had left, Odiwale called his elders in so that they can all gather around and listen to what news Aderipo had brought for them from the oracle. And as they all seated, he could hear the townspeople outside singing and dancing joyfully as they gathered in groups, going into the bushes to collect herbs to help themselves. I'll stop part 1 here. And I know we are all excited, but I'll have to make this in 2 parts. So in part 2, we will continue. But let me know your guesses of what news Aderipo had brought, and who is your favorite character so far. I'll see you in my next video. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Thank you for watching it to the very end. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and don't forget to subscribe because we have more coming. Obviously, there's a part 2. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye.